Welcome to Devils Den Prehistoric Spring, where today I'll be scuba diving in this otherworldly subterranean oasis. You may not think of a Central Florida sinkhole as an appealing dive or snorkel site, but this hidden gem truly is one of the most beautiful caves on Earth. So let's go exploring. Located in rural Williston, Florida, a couple hours drive north of Orlando, the entrance to Devil's Den looks more like what you'd expect to find at a horse ranch than at a world-class underwater cave. There are pathways that lead right up to the opening of the sinkhole, so you can get your first glimpse of this natural wonder by peering in from up top. Devil's Den is actually an underwater river that's fed by a geothermal spring, so the water here remains around 72 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. The warmth of the water creates steam that rises up from the opening on cold days, and that's actually how this spot got its name. The early settlers of Central Florida saw this steam rising up from the cave's opening, suggesting an underground portal to hell, hence Devil's Den. There are basic facilities on site, including restrooms and a gift and rental shop for any snorkel or scuba gear needs. I'll mention here that if you are snorkeling, you do need to make a reservation in advance, although scuba divers do not. Also, I'd recommend bringing your own food if you're planning on spending the whole day here. The shop only sells some light snacks and beverages, and the surrounding area is pretty rural. For getting geared up, there are plenty of covered picnic tables close to the rental shop, so getting ready to dive is quick and easy. The entrance to Devil's Den is a short walk from the picnic tables. Everything on site here is pretty compact. You don't enter through the sinkhole itself, rather through this slightly janky-looking tunnel. The first staircase heading down into the depths is carved into the rock. It's very steep, uneven, and always wet, so be very careful when heading down with all your heavy dive gear. The clearance is also quite low, so watch your head. As you reach the bottom and turn the slight corner, the underground pool slowly reveals itself. At the landing, you have full view of this magnificent natural freshwater spring, complete with the moss from the surface dripping in from the opening above, bathed in sunlight. If there's no one behind you, it's nice to pause here for just a second to take it all in. Can you believe this place even exists? The second stairway is metal and leads down to the submerged main platform, where you can put on your fins and mask and jump on in. You can't leave anything on the stairs or platform, so whether you're diving or snorkeling, anything you take down here has to go in the water with you. As I mentioned earlier, the water here is 72 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, which is a bit chilly. I was in a 3mm wetsuit, but I recommend a 5mm for comfort. And of course, being a natural spring, the water here is crystal clear. You will see some sediment floating around once we get under, but that comes from divers accidentally stirring things up. The water itself is pristine. At the surface, the cavern is maybe 35 feet to the ceiling and about 120 feet across. But underwater things change. The cavern has an inverted mushroom shape as you descend, and it eventually expands to about 200 feet in diameter. And now, without further ado, let's head under. Now that we're diving, you may be wondering about marine life here. Are there any fish in Devil's Den? Yes, there are some, but not a ton, and they're not all that interesting. The geology here is really the main draw and attraction, not the marine life. And the geology here really is incredible. Caves such as this one were originally formed over time when rainwater carved through the limestone rock. These rocks that we are gliding amongst, some of them date back 33 million years. And Devil's Den truly is a prehistoric wonderland. Ancient fossils and bones have been found here, some dating back to the Pleistocene age. Several thousand-year-old human remains have been found here as well. Some of the fossils originally found in the cave are housed at the University of Florida's Museum of Natural History, so you can go and see them, but make sure you don't do any of your own underwater archaeological projects while you're diving here. There is no removing of any rocks or fossils, so if you spot anything interesting, leave it where it is. As we divers say, take only photos, leave only bubbles. It's very important to point out that although I've been using the words cave and cavern to describe this dive site, there are actually very clear delineations between the two types of diving. What we are doing here is technically cavern, not cave diving. What's the high-level difference? In cavern diving, you can always look around to find the natural sunlight. You're never submerged in complete and total darkness. We were in overhead environments where we could bump our heads on rocks if not careful, and it does get quite dark in the cavern. A flashlight is a must. But we were always able to spot the ambient light beaming in, and that's the difference. Cave diving requires specialized gear and intense, meticulous training. Entering a cave without that knowledge is incredibly dangerous, and even well-trained people have lost their lives in caves. Thankfully, you'll always know when you're entering formal cave territory in Florida, as the entrances are always marked by the infamous Grim Reaper sign. That said, my favorite parts of this dive are the tight squeezes in the more restricted passageways. Narrow swim-throughs are optional. You can always stay in the more open parts of the cavern, but I think these are a lot of fun. They can get dark in the middle, but there's always ambient light at the entrance and the exit, so you'll never lose your bearings. If you're not sure if diving in overhead environments is something you want to pursue, Devil's Den is really a great site to get some introductory experience without having to invest a lot of money in formal cave training. At this point, you might also be wondering how deep this all is. The answer is actually not very. The maximum depth of this site is only about 54 feet, and my own personal max depth here was 46 feet. So despite how intimidating some of these swim-throughs may look, everything here is relatively shallow. We did 2 dives here. The first one was 39 minutes and the second one 45. If you're good on air consumption, you can spend a lot longer down here, although I think we explored the whole area pretty thoroughly between the 2 dives. In between dives, I checked out the rest of the property a bit. It's not very big, but there is a cute pond here, which you can also scuba dive in, although I'm not sure why you would. There were also some cats. All the best dive sites always have the cats. But mostly during the dive breaks, I enjoyed walking through the tunnel, which is much easier to get through without being weighed down by all the scuba gear, and hanging out on the submerged platform, just taking in the atmosphere. Devil's Den is a special place, and I just wanted to spend every moment I could soaking in its ancient mystique. Thanks for joining me for today's adventure, and I hope you found diving in Devil's Den as otherworldly as I did. If you want to explore some other cool cavern dive sites, then do check out one of the video links above, and I do hope you'll subscribe to join me for all future adventures, both underwater and on land as well. Until then...
Okay, goodbye from Devil's Den. That was our last dive. Whew. Those stairs are terrible.